we finally got ourselves 8 stacks of blue ice, which is honestly going to be probably more than enough for our means. But the problem is, we are actually out of beacons. Ambrosia is gonna need at least 6 beacons. And not only that, we need beacons for other builds as well. So we are going to have to go kill the Wither. But having to kill the Wither one by one just seems like, honestly, a waste of time given our tech at this point. And so instead, we're gonna make ourselves a Wither killer. What up, my roomies, and welcome back to the technical guide to Minecraft. And today we're gonna make a Wither killer. And the reason why we're getting a Wither killer is mostly because we're kinda out of beacons. But not only that, because it's also the holiday season, I was thinking to myself, since I'm gonna get myself a beacon, I might as well get everyone on the server a beacon. So in a way, I guess this corporation is doing its yearly donation thing in order to lower down taxes. That hits close to home. So let's just get into it. Welcome to Kikakor, where safety is a concern. So to understand how the Wither killer works, we need to go over smart pistons. Now what smart pistons is that it'll automatically extend if there's a block on top of it. And how that works is with redstone torch. Because when a redstone torch is below a block, that block gets activated, which then sends a signal to the redstone, which will get brought up to the piston and automatically push it forward. Now we can upgrade this using a zero tick version of a smart piston. Now the difference between a regular smart piston and a zero tick smart piston is a zero tick. If I were to stop time real quick, you can see that both of them are activated because the piece of netherrack is on top of the redstone torch. If you were to move one tick, you could see that this is already fully extended thanks to the zero tick versus the smart piston, which will take 4 ticks. And even before this starts retracting, the zero tick smart piston is already fully back. Now it's important to note that if you don't zero tick a smart piston with a sticky piston on the bottom, what you'll end up doing is creating a clock. So if you're making a smart piston, be sure to use a smart piston that uses a regular piston instead of a sticky piston. Otherwise, you'll end up making a clock like we just demonstrated. Now, there are many configurations when it comes to zero-tick pistons, such as this observer-based one. Now, once this observer observes a block change, it'll send a pulse that'll activate the zero-tick. Now, bear in mind, when we're creating a zero-tick piston, the sticky piston and the regular piston have to both be looking at different directions in order for it to work. So if we were to freeze this real quick, delete the netherrack so that this gets energized, if you were to take one step forward, now you can see that the zero tick piston has pushed the observer forward. Now over here we have an example of a piston double extender, and what the point of this is that if this was normally powered, it would push it up to here. But if we would activate this, it goes one block further, which for some farms, and the Wither Killer farm in particular, is necessary in order to get blocks into their correct positions. Now the good thing about this is that not only does it go forward, it also pulls it back. And a different configuration that we're going to be using is this one, where the observer changes, sends a redstone pulse to this note block, which will then send a signal to the next note block and so on and so forth, causing this whole thing to then push forward just like that. And by using this model of a double piston extender, we'll be able to construct the Wither killer. On the previous episode, we talked about how observers, when they face each other, create a redstone clock. And so you get something like this, where it goes back and forth. Now we can combine this with a zero tick piston. Now we discussed previously that this observer setup causes this to zero tick, and by using this in combination with the observers facing each other, we can then make a repeating zero tick piston. And this acts as the loader for the soul sand that's going to be used to make the withers themselves. Now over here we have a 4 pulse redstone array, where after 4 pulses, so 1, 2, 3, 4, sends a redstone signal to an output, in this case a sticky piston pushing the netherrack up. So for every 4 pulses, it sends a pulse. Now we'll put a pin on this for now, but this will be important later on. So over here, we have a combination of what we talked about earlier, the repeating zero tick piston and a smart zero tick piston. Turn this on. If we were to put down netherrack in front, it starts pushing it forward. Now we can take this further by having that smart piston then redirect it forward. So let me demonstrate. And because both these are zero tick smart pistons, the chances of this clogging up is actually super small, which is going to be beneficial for us, because if any part of this machine gets locked up or clogged, it can mean that this entire machine can break, which could mean that the Wither might be set free by accident, and that's not what we want at all. Now over here is a culmination of all the different things that we've talked about in one machine, and credit to Borkon for creating this Wither killer. Now of course we need to address the elephant in the room. This Wither killer is only able to be made if you have a wither skull farm, because of course in order to make withers you need to have wither skulls, and without a wither skull farm well, this farm just isn't gonna work. So once we start this up, the 0-tick piston will keep pushing this forward. And for every time this 0-tick smart piston sends a pulse to push something forward, it'll send a redstone pulse this way. And using the 4-tick redstone array, it'll then push one forward. And this is important because in order to make a wither, you need to have soul sand in this T formation, like the one right here. And by having this 4-tick redstone array, we could push one for every 3 that gets put into position. Not only does this power this forward, but it also powers this double extender we talked about earlier, which will then push the soul sand forward into this spot. And along with pushing one forward, it'll also send one pulse this way, which will then power these powered rails, which will send a signal up to these dispensers, which will then dispense these wither skulls for us. All the while, it'll also cause this trapdoor to open, which the observer will notice the change, will then send a pulse to these pistons, pushing it forward, thus creating the T section right here. So, order operations, this will first push the soul sand forward and then dispense the wither skeletons, and then the wither will then be born? Created? I don't know what word you would use. Will exist. And because there's a wall right here, it'll get pushed up initially into the bedrock, which will then cause it to start suffocating. But the suffocation itself is not what's going to cause the wither to die. No. What's going to cause it to die is entity cramming. Because as we discussed earlier, we're going to be moving the soul sand at such a rapid rate. More than one wither can be produced through this machine. In fact, this machine will be able to pump out one wither every couple of seconds. Yeah, a little less than that too. And so when you have that many withers being birthed that quickly, entity cramming will then kick in, causing this entire thing to just, well, work quite easily. So let me demonstrate. Okay, let's turn this machine on and demonstrate. And just like that, the first wither is made. So the 4 redstone array sends a signal every 4 pushes. And the reason why we need the piston double extender to do the work for us is because this whole thing needs to be instantaneous, otherwise the wither will destroy the soul sand. So if we were to go max, you can quickly see how fast this machine makes more and more withers. And through the use of entity cramming, the wither's HP will go down very, very quickly. And through the use of this wither killer, we'll get ourselves a bunch of nether stars really quickly. Now, we talked about the wither skull farm before as being one of the major components of this farm in order for it to be used. But the other farm that doesn't get enough credit is the bartering hall itself. Now, if you're like me and don't like to go adventuring or mining or going out and getting the materials yourself, the bartering hall also supplies soul sand, which means that with a running bartering hall, you don't need to go to a soul sand valley and get yourself soul sand. You can just run the bartering hall itself. And since my bartering hall is connected to my gold farm, it's all pretty easy to set up. So not only do I have a wither skull farm to have all the wither skulls, I also have a bartering hall to get all the soul sand in order to power this thing. And again, special thanks to Borkon for making this wither killer design. Please check out his videos in the description below. For those that want to play around with this, Borkon will have a schematic that you can play around with in his video. And for those that want a world download or a block by block tutorial, please let me know in the comments below. So with that in mind, let's go back to the technical guide world and build this thing. Quick interruption. I noticed that only 12% of you are actually subscribed to this channel. Watching this long, I must be doing something right, so if you like this video, hit that like button and please subscribe to this channel. Any support helps and these videos take a bit long to make. Thank you so much and back to the video. Okay, now that we covered that, it's time to go build this thing. That we are done building this. So we're gonna fill up the barrels full of wither skulls that we got from our wither skeleton farm, grab as much of the soul sand as we can from the piglin bartering hall that we made, wow, like almost 20 episodes ago, and with any sort of luck we'll get a bunch of nether stars, supposing if everything goes right and I didn't accidentally break it by covering this up. We'll get a lot of nether stars so I can make a lot of beacons so then I can give to the server mates. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's turn this off and go check out on how much nether stars we got. Oh my, we got almost 7 stacks worth of nether stars, and we got a couple of heads thanks to the mob his data pack. And with these nether stars, we're gonna go ahead and make a bunch of beacons and go fly around and just drop it off at people's bases. I'm like super excited to actually get a bunch of stuff over to the server mates. They've been really active on the server, and I just want to say thanks for supporting me and the server itself, because an SMP lives and dies by its players that... Oh geez, I'm getting attacked. I should not be. Woo! I can't wait to give back to my community and my server mates for helping keep this server, well, really active. And the whole point of KikiCore is to give the builders and creative players all the things they need to build amazing structures. Like the Enderman farm behind me wasn't made by me, it was made by a server mate. So to give back to the community and the server mates, it's time to go make a bunch of beacons and start flying around.